Good morning, world. Good morning. Good morning. And oh, damn, damn, the cat going crazy. The cat going crazy right now. As you can tell, I just woke up, and it's time to discuss some of the books that I read in the month of April. The April month of reading. It was the weirdest fucking book. Weirdest month of reading ever for me. There was some low lights, bitch. And there was some middle and there was some very fucking highlights. So to get started, I'll talk about the ebooks just because I can. So the first book, two major disappointments coming up. So just brace yourselves. If you're, my hair looks so ugly. Let me hit a hat. Let me hit the hat on him. Check this shit out. Bad hair day? No worries at all. Look, bang. The cap doesn't look straight. That's pretty clean, bruh. Let's go. Wait, I gotta hit it on the back side. Anyway. Fuck, I need a mirror. Because it's like... what is going on? Wait, hold on 1 second. In the mirror, because... Dude, doing that shit when it's mirrored is like crazy. Okay. Bad hair day, even worse. I think it's better on the front. Flip it. Okay, let's go. So first book on the radar is okay. I thought it was the other one. We'll do this one first. Fine, sure. Why is it so zoomed in? I can do a little scroll if you want. You guys want a little scroll? It's got the sticker. Yeah, I didn't like this book. Surprise to no one, but well, actually, I don't know. I really like Gone Girl the movie. I think it's really good. But I think when you write books like that, I definitely think Sharp Objects is similar, but definitely not. I've seen some people say it's like Gone Girl, but not as good. I don't really see that direct comparison, but it's definitely in a similar vein. But the thing about Sharp Objects for me that I just didn't really like is when you write something like that, you really need to nail the characterizations, the mood, everything. It's really hard to write something that is so, that you have these detestable characters kind of duking it out and figuring out this mystery. There's so many things to upkeep, whether that be the mystery has to be an actual mystery, the characters need to be, if not likable, enjoyable to read, because you want to enjoy the book you're reading. The dialogue and interaction between these kind of characters needs to be well written. It has to be well written. That's the point of writing a book, and I just don't think she really nailed that. I don't think the main character was interesting to read. I don't think she was likable, but I don't think she was meant to be likable, so that's not an issue with me at all. But I just thought the whole twist at the end, it didn't really feel like a twist. It felt more like a slow reveal. But I think I don't know, it didn't really feel like it was deceiving at all. But it felt like it thought it was deceiving the whole time. Like, it just put everything in front of you and then slowly told you what happened. And you could really figure it out from the get-go what was happening. I think it was pretty dark and gruesome. I'll definitely give it that. But I don't think they complemented the story much. I'm definitely someone that loves a bit of gritty, dark. What the cat doing? Let's hit the cat one time. Hold on. Oh, oh, oh. What's the cat doing? Oh, y'all see that? Anyway, back to me. What the cat doing? The cat over there. I definitely don't think it landed what it was trying to do, but I respect it, I suppose. I guess this kind of cemented that this isn't really my genre, so I'm kind of like, how much can I hate on it? I ended up giving it like a 1.75 or a 2 rounded up, I suppose. It wasn't horrible, but I thought it was horrible. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it was horrible, but I don't think if I was to objectively say, was it a bad book? Honestly, I would probably say it was a bad book objectively, but not like a horrible stinking pile of whatever. So, from one bad review to the next, this one is a hot stinking pile of ass. I fucking hate this book. This book fucking sucks. I don't care what anyone has to say. There isn't a single redeeming thing about this goddamn book. The drawings in the margin, I suppose, but that doesn't redeem how fucking just not enjoyable this book is to read. It sucks. It's horrible. I just don't care for it. Because I've been reading. I've read all of Cosmere, right? I've been having some doubts about Brandon Sanderson. Not in general. I love the Soma Archives. I'm pretty down for all of Mistborn. There's a couple entries that aren't like my favorite thing, but overall it's still positive. But this book was kind of like, okay, I'm gonna drop this like veneer of like, I have to write a high fantasy, like these, I have to do it how it's meant to be done, and I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it. And it really illuminated that, like, Brandon Sanderson, no, fuck off. Like, when he chain him up, like, force him to write like epic high fantasy and like make it customer service. He needs to raise the customer service because this fucking sucks. And I know he just wrote what he wanted to write, but he should never do that again. Like, he should just write what he thinks people will enjoy, because that's what he's good at. The second he starts to insert himself too much into these books, I turn away every time. The humor in Tress was an example of that didn't work for me, but the rest of Tress I thought was actually quite good. But this book, holy shit, there wasn't a single redeeming thing about it. I disliked it. I hated it. I think Brandon Sanderson bled through the pages in a way that was like really unenjoyable to read. His sense of humor was like, off the rails, just doing whatever he wanted to do. His storytelling was whatever he wanted to do. I just don't think it worked in any way, shape, or form. This book fucking sucked. I'm so annoyed that I had to sit through and read it because I could have been doing something else. But whatever. This is by far my least favorite Brandon Sanderson book. Possibly the worst book that I've read. But there's a caveat to that. One, I have to have actually finished a book for it to count in that category. And I think I've read worse books, but I've put them down. So I have to say that for first one. And then second one is more or less the expectation, right? I know Brandon Sanderson is a capable author. He's a strong author. He's written some of my favorite books. And so I'm coming into this going like, hey, let's see what you got. And he had nothing. So it felt worse. I think if this was a debut author or someone that I knew, I might give it like a 1.5 or a 2, or, maybe just not have. No, I think this would have got a 1 regardless. I don't know. I may be less harsh. So I have to remember that as well. But if someone says they like this book, I will never trust them with anything again, with a recommendation, with a review, with anything. I truly do think this is just a bad book, and it's really illuminated that like, I don't fuck with this. I don't like this. This needs to stop. You need to stop. You need to be fucking stopped. And it's really sad, honestly, that this is what's getting written in place of other books that could possibly be getting written. I'm not even saying Stormlight Archive, but I'm just saying anything in the Cosmere that is furthering the story. Like Tress, I really enjoyed what it was. I didn't think it was perfect. It wasn't my favorite book ever, but I still gave it a 4 stars out of 5. I thought, like, hey, this is a really good book. There's some parts of it that don't gel 100% with me. Maybe that could be a 3.5. But this book was like, there was nothing redeeming about it. At least with Tress, it was introducing new things. Even if I hated Tress, which I didn't, but even if I did, if I hated Tress to the level of this, at least it was bringing something new to the table. It was introducing new magic, new world, new characters to an existing story that I love. So it wasn't undermining anything. That would be the only time where I think I would flip and be like, this is way worse. But for this instance, like, this book fucking sucks. If Tress was as bad as this, I almost think I would give Tress a 2-star, because at least it was furthering this narrative that we have that is still, interesting. And while I might not have enjoyed the content in that book, I mean, it can be extrapolated and I'll see the potential, and it was interesting. This is just sad and depressing how bad it is. And I feel, honestly, I'm so grateful I didn't buy these physically. And I feel really bad for people that are actually getting this book and paid, like, I think if I bought not the signed books, sorry, the printed books of these secret projects, it would have been like $100 per hardcover. I feel so bad for people that paid that, because this book is barely worth $10. Like, it's bad. It's fucking bad, but whatever. Anyway, that's enough me ranting about how shitty that book is. Let's get into some of the books that I started to enjoy. I'll start with one that I didn't love completely. There is definitely some room for improvement, and that is The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch. I love Gentlemen Bastards, right? No, this isn't a surprise to anyone that has, talked to me before. I like Lies of Lochlamora is one of my favorite fantasy books ever, and I always recommend it. I think it's so good. It's gritty, it's dark, it's fun, it's so interesting. It is such a great blend of massive, complex fantasy, blah, 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 without actually being very fantasy at all. It has some magic, but you honestly barely notice it, and when it does exist, it's how do I say this without spoiling? It's honestly, it's not the way that that magic usually exists in a story. I'll say that much. It's not the usual way that the author will use magic. I think it's actually really amazing how Scott Lynch has crafted these characters and sets them so far apart in this world without them having magic. I'll just say it. They don't have magic themselves. I don't know. That's not a huge spoiler, I don't think, at all. But I think it is so impressive how Scott Lynch just manages to really highlight these normal people. I mean, literally 99% of the people in this story are just normal, but there are magic users in this world, and I think it's really commendable that he didn't go that route to build up his main characters as just magic wielders, because if any author's starting a story, I mean, that's kind of how you go. And so anyway, that's the series as a whole, but this book is it definitely takes a step down, not in terms of quality, but in terms of the stakes, what's going on, the pace. It just kind of takes a step down or a step back. And I think there's a couple reasons for this. Probably reason one is the situation at hand. It isn't as big of an issue as the books 1 and 2 were. But I was okay with that. I was kind of thinking like, hey, we've been doing this high stakes thing for a while. Like, I don't mind if we sit back and do something a bit more fun, which keeps the spirit of Gentlemen Bastards alive. And that's what this book definitely does. It reduces the stakes a little bit. It makes their adventure a little bit less, life and death, which it definitely has been the past 2 books. It's been that and then some. And at the start of this book, it definitely is that still. But once you kind of figure out what's going on, and you kind of the whole plot of the book is illuminated to you, the stakes are definitely a little bit lower, which I wasn't opposed to at all. But I think where it didn't quite land for me personally was when the stakes were lowered, the fun or the interest or the plot, or there wasn't enough to really jump in and make up for it. And so what I mean by that is that the thievery and the scheming and the plotting in books 1 and 2 is so much of the book. It's so crucial to this book. Add in the life and death stakes that are at play. Add in these really complex character relationships that are starting to build within books 1 and 2. This has the complex character relationships, don't get me wrong, but it kind of lacks the fun, jovial nature of the scheming and the plotting. It has it here, but it wasn't for me. I don't think it was as I'm just looking at the cat. I don't think it was as intelligent. I don't think it was as gripping. I don't think it was as fun to read about. There's definitely plotting and scheming and stuff, and that's all here, and that's fine. It's pretty enjoyable when you do get to it, but the other major part that doesn't really sing for me in this book is the flashback. Now, I don't think the flashbacks are bad in this book at all. I actually think they're potentially the best part of the book, but it kind of crushes all momentum and pace that you may start to generate while reading this book, because the main plot of the story is moving, but maybe not as fast as other fantasy books or other books in general, and that's okay, right? A slower paced story. I love a slower paced story, but it was slower paced, and then the flashbacks were also, they weren't slow paced, but they just added so much bulk to this book that you had to get through. I think the flashbacks are pretty much half of this book, maybe 40 to 35%, but it feels like half. And while I think the flashbacks story that was going on, especially towards the end of the flashbacks, the beginning of the flashbacks, I don't know, but the ending, I thought was way more interesting than what was going on in the current timeline. And that just created this sense of like this really weird relationship between the current timeline, what was happening, and then what was happening in the flashbacks. Because on one hand, I was like, okay, I want to know what's happening in the current timeline because that is what's most relevant. That is kind of the General Bastard series. Anything in the flashbacks, I know what's going to happen, or at least I have an inkling as to how it's going to go down, because obviously we're in the future now. But then I was like, well, I'm actually enjoying reading the flashbacks more than I am reading the current timeline, because Scott Lynch managed to do what I said before, have those lower stakes, or actually the stakes are pretty high, but we know what kind of happens in the flashbacks anyway, because we've seen the future. So the stakes are higher, but they're kind of lower at the same time. But he manages to make it fun, jovial, exciting. It's the spark that was in books 1 and 2, but in this book, it's in the flashbacks instead of the actual story. And then in the actual story, we kind of just have this low stakes character development relationship thing going on, and it just wasn't as strong as the previous books. But I still think it really. I still think it was really great. I still think Scott Lynch is the man. His writing is incredible. His characters are amazing. I think he kind of saved the direction of the series as a whole through this book, but that really happened in this portion, and then this portion of the book was just kind of fucking blah. My stomach just grumbled. Y'all hear that? But anyway, this was a great book, but I just think it was a pretty big step down for Scott Lynch and Gentleman Bastards itself. I know he was, everyone says this, but whatever. He was dealing with some stuff at the time. I actually don't think that really affects it for me. But I can definitely see the parallels between divorce, anxiety, depression, and how Locke feels during that book. So I can see why people draw that comparison. But for me personally, I'm not putting too much on that comparison as a whole. Anyway, I have a cough for here. It was really hot when I made it, so I've been letting it cool. It's been 20 minutes of it cooling. But you know how I said at the start of this that there was some goodness to talk about? Bitch, there is some goodness to fucking talk about. And I want to start us off with Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Holy fuck, this book is good. This book is so good. Robin Hobb is an incredible author. And this book, and I'll talk about book 2 as well, because I do have it here. But it's so good. It's so amazing. If you can see on the back, this guy right there. Oh, focus. Come on now. Anyway, you can kind of see it. Yeah, that guy. That is the Fool, or just Fool, I suppose. My favorite character. And when I saw that the Tawny Man trilogy was called, they were all Fool in the title, I was like, let's fucking go, because the Fool is my favorite fucking character in this series. I just think it's so good. It is really depressing at times. Every moment that you spend with these characters just has a bit of a melancholy varnish put over it, I suppose. But I really enjoy media that is melancholy. Whatever. I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's really amazing. I know a lot of people hate on Fitz like making mistakes and being like a detestable main character. I don't want to be that guy, but I don't agree. I really don't agree. I think he makes choices that when you read it from a omniscient it's first person perspective, but when you read it with this, because he tells it from a future timeline and he's reflecting upon his life. When you hear it in that context and you understand the typical way that these things tend to go, and that Fitz is acting on impulse, he's actually there. He is making decisions based on the small amount of information that he has, etc., etc. Because we're hearing this from a reflective point of view at times as well, I think it might get lost on some people that this is a child. This is like this is a child making these decisions, by the way. And I really love when characters make poor decisions and it's rational. From their perspective, their decision is rational. And in my opinion, that is what this book is. It is incredibly rationalized choices from Fitz, and he is in a shit fucking circumstance. And I think the people that hate Fitz might not be able to really put themselves in his shoes or empathize with him as the way some other people might. And I'm not saying that anyone's wrong or right in this, but I definitely feel like I'm able to, see that if he makes a mistake or whatever, right? Or he makes a choice that is probably going to be detrimental to his future, instead of being angry with Fitz, I see it as, oh, like he's been through so much shit that he has to make this decision. Like he feels like he has to. And I feel like every single time he or someone else in this book makes a mistake or makes a choice that is detrimental to other people in the book or themselves, it's justified, it's rationalized, it makes sense. It is so well realized by Robin Hobb that these decisions aren't just coming out of nowhere. They have this entire book of justification as to why he might make a self-destructive decision or a decision that is going to hurt someone else. And then even going into, you know, maybe even why he's not as, you know, smart and capable as you yourself, the reader. Like, you know, I don't freaking adjust my fedora and keep reading and go like, well, I would have made a different choice had I been in his shoes. It's like, no, this is a kid we're reading about here. And this is a kid that has pretty much the entire kingdom, like the entire kingdom's bullshit of his growing up, the trauma, the experiences, him feeling like an outcast, is piling up on him and is making him fucking go crazy. And I feel like people that aren't able to rationalize that, aren't able to understand that, won't understand what Robin Hobb is doing with Fitz. And I really love it. And I feel sorry for those who don't get Fitz, because I think he's already a great character, and I know that he's going down the path of, you know, just 9 fucking mainline books and 7 non-mainline books in this series, but I know that the journey that Fitz is going on is going to be, you know, him maturing, him wisening up, him growing throughout the years. That goes without saying, you know, with the knowledge that there's 9 Fitz books out there. You know, we kind of know what's going to happen with this character. But I feel like even so, book 1, you can't really hold him accountable. I don't think you can hold Robin Hobb accountable for making a poor character. Not every character has to be the most likable person on the planet. I just feel like their reasons for being need to be justified and interesting and fun to read. And I think Fitz knocks all of those precautions like out of the park. And I guess it can be frustrating to read characters that don't do what they should. I know that's a huge reason why a lot of people don't like Normal People by Sally Rooney. It's because the characters they're acting on impulse and rationalizations that they make within their brains, and, you know, the trauma that they've lived through is compounding and making them make bad choices or not see the correct choice that they probably should make. And I think it's the same thing here. My stomach is rumbling again. I will say probably my only complaint with the entire series so far is I'm not really sold on the magic system just yet. We kind of have 2 magic systems at the moment, with kind of hints and potential at more. But in book 1, I was skeptical of skilling, and I was kind of on board for the wit. In book 2, it's kind of the opposite. I think I'm not really finding the wit that interesting to read about, and I think it does. Here's book 2. I'm only halfway through book 2, so no spoilers. But I think what's happening in this book that I'm not as excited about is the wit, and I think that does come. If you've read this book, it does come a lot with the character that is, besides Fitz, that is essential to the magic system of the wit in this book. Trying hard to explain it without spoiling, but you'll know what I mean. I'm finding that relationship especially to be the one point of challenge for me in this book that I don't think it's as exciting to read about. And honestly, that does lean a little bit into Fitz making poor choices, but it's not the kind of, it's not that he's making this poor choice. It's more just that I'm not really enjoying the other character that he's interacting with, using the wit, or that has, access to the wit or whatever, right? Um, it's not like I'm just. That's the one thing in this whole series that I'm kind of cautious about. And it's not like a bad thing. I don't think it would ever bring this book down to 4 or 4.5 stars. And I'm sure Robin Hobb will do something with it that's really impressive and really strong. But if I was to highlight something that I would say is kind of a bit of a, maybe even not a red flag, but an orange flag, like I'm a bit iffy on this at the moment, it would be that. And all I really hope is that it pays off in a strong way. That would really be great for me. I would really enjoy that. And there's definitely a ton of room for development, using the wit and the character that Fitz interacts with, in this book. I can definitely see that going further. And I kind of expected that to start happening in book 1, but it happening in book 2 is completely fine with me. That's okay. I just feel like maybe we're in the rough years and it'll get better. I hope. If it gets worse, that's not a problem as well. I just want it to I feel like we're in a bit of a limbo at the moment, like a storytelling limbo with some of the aspects that are happening, and especially that storyline with concern of the wit magic system. We also have the storyline of the Red Ship Raiders going on, which is interesting, but there's a lot of things happening. And I really love how Robin Hobb is able to have like 10 different storylines, or even like 20 different storylines and subplots, all just coexisting and firing on all cylinders, one after the other. And every chapter kind of touches on a little bit of each of them, is really strong. I'm not sure really where it's going to go. I honestly feel like this is kind of just it happens as whatever, like it just happens. You'll figure out the plot of the books as you read along. If I had to guess at what happens at the end of book 3 in the trilogy, I definitely could. I have some pretty solid guesses, but I feel like that is what most people would think anyway, and it's not going to be a mystery that it's kind of heading down that route. One thing I will mention though, because I'll use book 1 for this, is in the start of the book we have a map, right? Duh. Actually, not duh, because Gentleman Bastards books don't have maps. Is we have the 6 duchies, the map of the 6 duchies, but when you read it and when you look at the map, it honestly isn't a very complex world at all. I understand that there's mysteries, and a lot of those I think are beyond the map kind of thing, but one of my thoughts going into this 16-book fucking mega saga is like, this world better get expanded upon. And I'm sure she will. But I think that it's hard, because if this was coming out and I only knew it as a trilogy, I would have no issues with the way the world building is going. But because I know it's a 16-book series, I'm kind of expecting like Westeros level like complexity in the world, which I know I shouldn't, but I just want that like huge expansive world that, it's going to take 16 books to really explore and soak it in. There is some of that, but I feel like she's so reserved in terms of world building, and and I don't mean like world building in terms of like the magic system and the area that they live in. I just mean like these really expansive outward, making the world feel huge. Um, she's not doing too great in that area, but I also think that could be intentional. You know, she wants to make this a really tight, concise story, and so we haven't really looked too far out of the scope of the first book, or you know where Fitz lives and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's very focused on Buckkeep, which is kind of like where Fitz lives. Buckkeep Town, like these are so explored at the moment, and I'm really liking that. And we're kind of getting towards, you know, pushing to a little bit of outward expansion, but not quite there yet. Yeah, but I'm only halfway through this book. I figured I would film this before I got to the end of it, because it's the 29th and I'm not going to read all this in a day. So I figured I may as well just do it now. I can touch on it next month because I want to have read the final book, which is Assassin's Apprentice, Royal Assassin, and then something Assassin. I don't know. It's something Assassin. I want to read that next month. I'm trying to consider what book I want to read between them. I mean, if the ending of Royal Assassin is amazing and I want to dive right into the next one, I probably will. But I do like to kind of have something in between my series, just kind of space them out a little bit more. I might slip Red Rising in there. I know I probably shouldn't start another series because I need to read Game of Thrones book 2. I need to read the Dandelion Dynasty book 2. I need to read I need to continue on with the First Law world. There's a lot of stuff I need to be doing, but I might just, because Red Rising isn't that long. Hunger Games on Mars, like, are you kidding me? Let's fucking go. I love tournament, challenge type books. So Red Rising, I've always had it on my radar. I've always thought I'm gonna like this series. There's never really been a time where I was like, I'm a bit on the fence of Red Rising. No, like, I know that I'm gonna fuck with it. If I don't, I'll eat my words or bite my tongue, but I'll shove 2 fingers up my ass. But like, I think I'm gonna rock with it. I really do think I'm gonna rock with it. I do want to finish out this series. I'm so excited for Mad Ship, or Live Ship Traders, Ship of Magic. So fucking excited. Like, that's the series that I wanted to, like, I started the Realm of the Elderlings for. I just wanted to read the Live Ship Traders, but I was like, I'll do this one first just because. And I really like this one. So now I'm like, is the one that I'm actually excited for, is it going to be as fucking cool as I hope it is? Because I'm really leaning on that working for me. You know, I'm banking on it. My chips are down. So wish me luck. It's probably going to be finish this book, Red Rising, book 3 of this series, then maybe Red Rising book 2, or Game of Thrones, or the something in the First Law world. That's what I'm planning. Things could also change. There's a bunch of standalone stuff that I have as well that, but that's how I'm seeing it. I really want to get into Red Rising. I want to rise. I really want the board game too, but I want to at least read book 1 before I go and grab that board game. Because let me Google it actually, see how much the board game is. Red Rising board game. Board game. It's not coming up, guys. A board game. $38 for Red Rising board game. That's not bad. That's not bad. Number of players 1.6. Yeah. I don't really know what the game is about. Hand management combo building game. Oh, okay. Fair enough. But I do want it. Maybe I'll wait. I'll wait a little bit until. But I love the box. Wait, let me show y'all. Oh, I can't really. Y'all see that? Look on the left. Whatever. Whatever, dude. Yeah, I'm gonna go fuck off and play the new Star Wars game. Yeah. That's what I'm gonna do. What? Why the fuck are you still here? Go away. Fuck off.